Headlines: the man charged with murdering 7 people at a 4th of July parade in suburban Illinois is expected to make his first court appearance today. Robert Cremo's appearance comes one day after authorities revealed that he'd purchased his guns legally, despite 2 encounters with law enforcement that should have raised red flags. Christopher Martinez reports.
Lake County State Attorney Eric Reinhardt announced the first charges Monday.
Today, the Lake County State's Attorney's Office has charged Robert Cremo III with 7 counts of first-degree murder for the killing spree that he has unleashed against our community. These are just the first of many charges that will be filed against Mr. Cremo.
Reinhardt says the upcoming charges will include attempted murder and aggravated battery. So far, no motive is known in the shooting. Police had earlier confiscated Cremo's knife collection. That was back in 2019, after family members told police Cremo had threatened to kill everyone at home. Since then, Cremo apparently bought 5 firearms, including the high-powered AR-15 style rifle used in the 4th of July shooting. Reporting for Pacifica Radio News KPFA, I'm Christopher Martinez.
President Biden heads to Ohio today for remarks on his plan to stabilize a wobbly economy. Biden is expected to appear with union leaders and talk about shoring up workers' pensions. Ohio has been trending strongly Republican in recent years. Former President Trump carried the state twice, but the Democrats have hopes of winning a Senate seat that's coming up this year. Biden will today announce a new rule that will allow major new financial support for troubled pensions that cover some 2 to 3 million workers. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government has been rocked in recent days by high-profile cabinet resignations. His administration has faced numerous scandals over the past few months, but as Feature Story News' Laura Macon-Isherwood reports, unseating Johnson would be difficult to pull off.
Both Finance Minister Rishi Sunak and Health Secretary Sajid Javid announced they would leave their positions on Tuesday, saying they had lost confidence in Boris Johnson's leadership. Several junior government officials joined them, following claims the Prime Minister had been aware an MP he promoted within his party had been the subject of sexual assault allegations. In Parliament, the Prime Minister said he regrets allowing that MP to continue to hold office.
We will not tolerate that kind of behaviour in this or any other party, Mr. Speaker.
Opposition Labour Party leader Sir Keir Starmer attacked the Conservative government, claiming it was more evidence of a lack of integrity.
It was the same when taxpayers' money was being abused, and it was the same when he and his mates parted their way through lockdown. Anyone quitting now, after defending all that, hasn't got a shred of integrity.
Boris Johnson has indicated he intends to continue as Prime Minister despite growing calls for him to stand down. From Feature Story News in London, I'm Laura Macon-Isherwood.
A 3-judge panel in a federal appeals court in New Orleans is set to hear arguments today on whether to uphold an Obama-era program that prevents the deportation of thousands of immigrants brought into the country as children. A federal judge in Texas last year declared the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, program illegal, although he agreed to leave the program intact for those allegedly benefiting from it while his order is appealed. Immigrants' rights advocates and supporters of the program planned a vigil outside the courthouse. Parts of Sydney, Australia have been inundated by 4 major floods since last March. The flooding has left weary residents questioning how many times they can rebuild. The latest disaster follows Sydney's wettest ever start to a year, with dams overflowing and a drenched landscape incapable of absorbing more rain that must instead run into swollen waterways. Experts say there are climate, geographic, and demographic factors behind Sydney's latest flooding emergency. The Biden administration has nixed funding for wildlife migration mapping in its 2023 budget. However, advocates for a 4-year project underway in the western U.S. hope Congress will set aside $5 million so the United States Geological Survey can continue its work. Public News Service's Roz Brown has more.
Since 2018, the United States Geological Survey has mapped wildlife migration corridors using radio collaring of big game species, such as mule deer, pronghorn, and moose. Glenn Harper with the Department of Natural Resources in New Mexico says the maps help experts understand patterns of specific herds, which allows proactive management.
If you know that there's a corridor in an area that you can mitigate your actions to protect, then you're way ahead of the curve instead of coming back later and being like, oh my, we did something wrong here.
The USGS has previously received up to $5 million in annual congressional appropriations to develop the maps, but the Biden administration zeroed out funding for next year's budget. I'm Roz Brown.
Starting this month, chemical companies will again be taxed for cleanup of toxic waste sites, also known as Superfund sites. Public News Service's Mike Moen reports.
On July 1st, the tax was reinstated after it was allowed to expire in the mid-1990s. The recent changes were authorized under the bipartisan infrastructure law signed by President Joe Biden. Emily Rogers with the Public Interest Research Group says for a quarter century, the program languished by leaning on taxpayers as opposed to having the industry foot the bill.
The funds that were used to clean up Superfund sites dropped precipitously, and with that drop, also the number of sites that were cleaned up each year dropped precipitously.
Iowa has 11 sites on the national priorities list. Supporters say the tax will provide $14 billion over the next decade to accelerate this work. Industry groups lobbied against the move, and PIRG anticipates similar opposition amid efforts to reinstate a tax for petroleum companies. I'm Mike Moen.
Officials expanded evacuation orders for remote California communities near a wildfire in a mountainous region that may have been sparked by fireworks or a barbecue on the 4th of July. The Electra fire in Sierra Nevada Gold Country broke out Monday afternoon and tripled in size to about 6.1 square miles. It was 5% contained as of last night. Fire officials said the fire was making short uphill runs. Authorities said firefighters were working to keep flames confined to unpopulated canyon areas. Mandatory evacuation orders and warnings combined reportedly affected up to 700 residents in Amador County and 300 to 400 people in Calaveras County. Legendary rock guitarist Carlos Santana collapsed on stage during a show in suburban Detroit Tuesday and was rushed to a hospital. Santana later blamed the episode on forgetting to eat or drink water. The 74-year-old Santana's manager said he was doing well today after being taken from his show at Pine Knob Music Theater in Clarkston, Michigan. Santana was performing live when he passed out on stage due to the effects of dehydration and heat exhaustion. Partly cloudy today in the San Francisco Bay Area, highs in the mid-70s, lows tonight in the upper 50s. In the central San Joaquin Valley, sunny today, highs in the low 90s. I'm Max Pringle.